Well, hello there and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Caribbean Princess. We were lucky enough to spend 16 nights on board earlier this year in August. We're going to tell you the things that we liked, the things that we didn't like so much, and giving you some top tips on how to get the most out of your time on Caribbean Princess. So keep watching and come along with us.
This was our first cruise on Princess, and overall we were really impressed with the food on board Caribbean Princess.
We ate most of our evening meals in the main dining room, and the food was of a consistently good to sometimes excellent standard.
There were, however, a couple of dishes that missed the mark, but on 16 nights, that's okay.
I particularly enjoyed the steak and lobster on the formal night, and I don't normally do the formal night, so it was really nice to enjoy that.
The lunches were also good in the main dining room, and it felt like there was a wider menu choice than on other ships that we've been on.
I'd say service in the main dining room was always good, and the pace of the meals was absolutely fine. I'd heard some people say that sometimes that they could be a bit slow, but we found the pace was fine, especially when we were eating with Milo. They did a really good job of kind of keeping things moving.
After a few days, Milo decided what he liked. Fruit salad for a starter, mac and cheese for a main, and then he rotated round lots of the desserts.
And I couldn't even persuade him to have a steak. But he did try a few things from the main menu, and he particularly enjoyed one of the seafood things, so it wasn't a problem to mix and match at all. So casual dining was not really something that was familiar to me because we'd not been on Princess before. So on Caribbean Princess, the casual dining venues were Planks, which is the barbecue venue, and Steamers, which was kind of primarily a seafood venue. And there was also a secret venue, which was Vines, where you could order things from as well.
We ate in Planks one night. We love barbecue food, so it was an obvious choice. The quality and the taste of the food was great. We'd seen that the portion sizes were huge when we came in, and also had seen some warnings about that before we came in. So we tried to order 2 meals between the three of us, thinking that would be plenty. I don't know whether they gave us extra portions. I think they did.
They gave us double portions.
There was a huge amount of food on the table. It was all lovely, but it was just a lot to eat. And if you're someone who's intimidated by big plates of food, make sure it's known. Or big planks of food.
It was also just unfortunate timing, I think, because it was a day when it was really quite rough, and Planks is like right at the top of the ship, or near the top of the ship, so it also had the most movement.
And the back.
Yeah.
Top and back. Worst combination.
So we ended up actually taking some food away back to the cabin. I did eat it later with a glass of wine, which was very nice.
Yeah, and they were really happy for us taking food away. It wasn't a problem at all. They were really encouraged it.
So then the secret venue that I said about was Vines. So there we went for a charcuterie platter, and it was really, really good. I'd say like the charcuterie in general on the ship was very good, but the one at Vines was excellent. And it also came with a separate platter of chocolate truffles, which were absolutely amazing, and I think I probably ate most of those.
They were good. I don't know how you managed to eat most of them. They were very good.
But Milo didn't like them, so it was all right.
We actually found some food he didn't like.
Yeah.
There were some great options for speciality dining on board the ship. We really enjoyed Sabatinis. We actually ate there twice. We went on our own when Milo was in kids club one night, and then we went back again with Milo a few days later.
And I booked the first meal at Sabatinis before we got onto the ship because we had 2 specialty dining meals included as part of our Princess premiere. The service in Sabatinis was amazing both times, and the food itself was really, really tasty.
We personally found that the appetizers, pasta and dessert courses were much better than the main course. And to be honest, there was so much food, you could have quite happily just done that.
And actually the second time when we went with Milo, he enjoyed the arancini. So he'd never had arancini before. He loved the arancini. And one of the people working in the restaurant gave him an extra special plate to take away, which he was absolutely loved. So the service was just really nice. We ate once at the Crown Grill. I have to say, we were left a little bit disappointed.
The maitre d' was running tables, so when we arrived we had to wait a bit to even be greeted before we were seated.
And I think that's always my thing, is like actually, if you're greeted and you get sat down with a drink, then everything is good. But when you're just waiting there outside, it's just not brilliant.
Yeah. And we weren't the only people waiting there.
No, not.
By the time we were seated, there was other couples behind us waiting to be seated as well.
So I had the beef fillet tartare, which came with a runny quail's egg, except it wasn't runny. So that was a bit disappointing. And I think you quite enjoyed the onion soup, but it was so cheesy. It was really difficult to eat, wasn't it?
I'm not one to normally complain about things being too cheesy. It was lovely, but it was just thick with cheese. Of course, we had steak. We had a ribeye and a filet mignon between us. They were both cooked well rather than overcooked. They were cooked how we liked them, but they didn't have a whole lot of flavour, and there was no salt and pepper shakers on the table. They did have the salt of the various different types to offer, but it's a bit much when you have to wait for the maitre d' or the waiters, who are obviously really busy, to ask for some seasoning.
Yeah, so it was just, and I know that's only a little thing, but it was just symbolic of kind of like the wider problems that there were on the evening that we went there.
And dessert. So we had the creme brulee cheesecake and the triple chocolate treasure. And they were both good. They were a nice way to finish the meal.
There was quite a bit of confusion. We weren't actually sure who was serving us. So whereas normally obviously you have the one kind of person or sometimes two people, there were lots of different people who were serving. So I'm not quite sure what was going on there really.
Yeah, and that just overall, I think, was just a bit confusing, and it just missed the mark.
There was a part of me that really wanted to try it again because I really wanted to like Crown Grill, but it just, we didn't have enough time, and to be honest, we preferred to go to Sabatinis again. Yeah. So if we were on another princess ship, I'd definitely give it a go again. Yeah. So then to the poolside restaurants. So that was Cones, Salty, Seadog and Slice. We used Cones for coffee when we were on the kind of higher decks of the ship, and service was always quick even when it was busy, and they were so friendly there as well.
We've seen and read about people having problems with queuing for the premium desserts in Cones, and we didn't experience this. But maybe that's because it was so cold and not many people were after premium dessert ice creams.
And how anyone could eat more than one of those a day, I don't know. But Milo had one of the ice cream sundaes, the premium desserts, and it was huge. And actually, I quite enjoyed eating some of it.
The ice cream sandwiches, on the other hand, we found a bit of a disappointment. I don't think I'd bother with them again. I don't know if it just wasn't what I was expecting, or we were expecting, or whether maybe just ice cream sandwiches aren't for us, or maybe they just weren't good ice cream sandwiches. But any which way, they left us feeling a bit disappointed.
And as for the pizza from Slice, well, I would say it was very variable. Princess say that they had the best pizza at sea. I'm not 100% convinced of that. I think MSC might just pip them to that. But sometimes it was okay, and sometimes it was absolutely amazing. Like, it was so good. We particularly enjoyed the Princess Special pizza, but they only had that on certain days.
We really enjoyed the food from the Salty Seadog, and even ended up going there for dinner one night when we fancied a change, because the food was just so nice.
And I think that's the thing on a 16-night cruise as well. Sometimes you just get to the point where you don't necessarily want to eat in the main dining room or that kind of, you just want something a bit more relaxed, but you don't quite want to go to the buffet.
What did we have there? So we tried the burgers, the hot dogs and the tacos. And to be honest, they were all really good. We appreciated that the food was cooked to order, and that was a real and it really benefited from that. You could really tell it was much nicer than similar sorts of places on other cruise ships.
And I think I try, so obviously we've done quite a lot of cruises on Celebrity, so my kind of natural comparison place tends to be with Celebrity, although we've been with lots of other companies as well. And I think the Salty Seadog was so much better than the Mars Grill on Celebrity. Everything was cooked fresh to order. You had to wait a bit longer, but it was fine. I'm happy to wait if the food is good. So yeah, I thought it was really good.
And they would give you a pager, so you didn't have to loiter. You could go off, find tables, sit down, get your drinks, get a slice of pizza whilst you're waiting, because that's just right over the other side of the ship. So it's really convenient. And
the other thing just to mention there was the service was just, they were so friendly and they were so helpful. It was really quite noticeable, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a really good atmosphere. One of the days that we ate out there and had our dinner out there, it was freezing cold. I did feel a bit sorry for the staff. They're all wrapped up. I mean, at least there we were there through choice and could go inside after.
Yeah.
But it did not show at all. They were just so helpful and friendly and wanting to do everything they could to make sure you had a really nice meal.
And to be fair, I think the crew across the ship were fabulous, but it was just particularly noteworthy there. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of mention it, really.
So the next food venue, of course, is the buffet. And usually we didn't have breakfast. We preferred the International Cafe to avoid the scrum that's often accompanies breakfast buffets.
Yeah, and I'd say the food at lunch and dinner was good, although in some respects I felt like there was less choice in the buffet than there is on Celebrity, but the quality was really good.
And they did do things that Celebrity have stopped a long time ago, like sushi. The sushi in the buffet for you and Milo was a really good option.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that, and it was only when we went for his tea that they ended up having that there, and so I had a cheeky starter of sushi from there. There were hand washing stations at both ends of the buffet, and there were people asking you to sanitize your hands. I don't think there were as many washing stations as there are on the newer ships, but they were there, and I was pleased that people were asking them.
There was, however, halfway through our cruise a norovirus outbreak. They did stop us from picking up plates and cutlery, but they didn't move to food being served. It seemed somewhat illogical. We could get our food from the buffet. We couldn't get hot drinks. We couldn't pick up a plate or cutlery.
Yeah, it was just a bit odd.
So room service. One of Milo's favourite things on holiday is room service.
And one of my least favourite things, because I don't normally enjoy it that much.
Yes. So room service has very mixed receptions in our house, but the room service was amazing, and we absolutely loved the medallion app and the fact that you didn't have to pay for the delivery.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I found really disappointing on Celebrity, is that they started charging. So even if you order something like a child's pizza, I can't remember how much it was. I've got a feeling it was like $18 or something delivery, which is just crazy. So we were really impressed on Princess. The breakfast, it wasn't brilliant. It was kind of basic. You got your pastries, your cereals, your teas and coffees. But actually what we found was that we preferred to go down to the International Cafe. I enjoyed the muesli or things like that. So we would just go down there, get a nice coffee, get some bits for breakfast, and personally preferred that to room service breakfast.
And my tip for the room service breakfast was not to order your tea or coffee through it, but to order it through the Medallion app, to get it from the International Cafe or from Cones through that way, because you ended up with a much nicer drink.
The only problem we did have with it was one evening when I ordered it for the next morning, and then they delivered about 2 cups of coffee at probably about 1 o'clock in the morning. But that was the only thing. Other than that, it was great.
And they did come back with those coffees at the right time in the morning as well.
The room service was fabulous on the day that we cruised through Prince Christian Sound, as we could order burgers, sandwiches, or whatever we wanted and keep enjoying the view on our balcony. And that, I think, was one of the really kind of special meals as well. It wasn't the fanciest meal, but just the scenery and to enjoy it on your own balcony was amazing.
And there has to be a mention of the pizza that Milo had one evening. He was on the promise of a film night and room service as one night during the cruise, and he picked pizza. It was extra, but it was worth it. It came in a little takeaway box, which Milo just thought it made an extra special treat.
We absolutely loved that drinks were included within the room service, as that is not something that we've seen on any other cruise line that we've been on. So we were a big fan. And I know it sounds a bit sad, but quite often after Milo's gone to bed, we're either having to go out to get a drink or something like that. So being able to order them, we definitely got a lot of usage out of that. Well, I got a lot of usage out of it anyway.
And sometimes you had to wait a little while for it, but it was never a ridiculously length of time, was it? We've seen some reviews where people have said they've had to wait too long for drinks, but I didn't notice that as a problem at all.
No, and even with the Medallion app, so when you ordered throughout the ship, we didn't find any issue with that at all.
So we've mentioned it a few times already, the International Cafe. This was one of our favourites. Maybe the best food offering on board? Maybe not, but it was high up there. It was certainly the place we used the most.
As I mentioned already, we did use it quite a few times for breakfast. We also used it for lunches and snacks along the way.
We did try one of the big cakes there.
2 of them.
Premium desserts, 2 of them did we try?
2 of them, yeah.
And they were a bit of a miss for me. I'm not a huge cake lover, but they were just too cold. The icing in them was almost frozen and it just lacked a bit of flavour, and for me that seemed like a bit of a waste.
And just proof that bigger cake isn't always better, I think, as well.
So the thing that would have made International Cafe better for me was if there had been some rotation of the sandwiches and the fillings. So every day the same filling was in the same type of bread. And they had some great looking types of bread. But as someone who doesn't eat egg, the sandwich with the egg filling. The bread looked amazing, but it was never anything I could eat. So that would have just made it even better for me, as if they'd done a bit of a mix and match along the way.
Yeah, yeah. And it would be easy enough for them to do that as well. They did have soup on offer as well some days, but it didn't seem to be an everyday kind of thing, and we didn't actually get the opportunity to try it. You can only eat so much on a cruise. So now on to the most important bit, drinks. So overall, we were really impressed with Princess. We felt like they had a good selection of top shelf spirits, and they would use them instead of the cheaper alternatives, which is what we started to see on Celebrity. We did have the Princess Premier package, but yeah, overall, really impressed.
With the Premier package, there was a good selection of wines, but if you had the regular package, you just got a choice of Merlot or Sauvignon, so it wasn't as good without it.
So one of the top tips that we were given that worked really well, when we were in the main dining room one evening, the waiter said to us to take a picture of the wines that were available by the glass on the Premier package. And I did that, and then every time we went into the main dining room after that, we knew what the selection was. So that was a good tip, I thought.
His other tip was about ordering 2 glasses at once.
I'd forgotten that.
So at the start of the meal, order your 2 glasses, and then you didn't need to wait for the sommelier again during the meal, which worked out quite well. A few of the other waiters did give us some strange looks, though.
They did, yeah, definitely. And in terms of a drinks package, so I know that the Princess packages have changed recently, but we had the 15 drinks per person, or 15 alcoholic drinks per person per day. There was only one day when we hit that number, and that was because they put all of the drinks that we'd had throughout a sea day all on one card. And so we just noticed that and then put the drinks through the room service on the other card. So it was fine, but definitely worth keeping an eye on in the Princess app, I think.
If you love good cocktails, as we do, Good Spirits is definitely the place to be. The bartender's really friendly in there. We tried lots of nice cocktails there, but I think we both particularly enjoyed the salted watermelon margaritas. So I'd highly recommend you try those.
Yeah, that was really good. The only thing was one evening I'd ordered it and then I had to carry it through to dinner. And it was like the biggest glass that you could possibly have. I'm not sure what they thought of us in the dining room, but it was definitely a good cocktail.
So Vines, which is the wine bar on board, we actually sat in Vines on quite a few mornings for breakfast because it's just opposite the International Cafe. We did have a couple of, not for breakfast, but we did have a couple of vodka martinis there.
Well, I did.
Yeah, you did. I didn't. And we did have some nice wines from there as well. So the vodka martinis were really well made.
Yeah, and one of the things that I liked as well was that you had really kind of big windows and they kept the curtains open, so you had a really good view of the sea, whereas I know like in a lot of places they try and create a bit of atmosphere, close all the curtains, but they didn't do that there, so we liked that as well.
It was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So the next venue that we're going to talk about was Skywalkers. We didn't find it on the first few days of the cruise, but when we did, we absolutely loved this space. We'd often go up and sit there during the day. Andy and I would take our books up, laptop up, do a bit of editing or a bit of reading and have a drink whilst Milo was in Kids Club. It was a great space. Yeah,
we didn't go there at all in the evening, or maybe you went once, didn't you, just to see what was going on, but we didn't go in the evening, but definitely during the day. And one of the things about it, so either the majority of the time, there was somebody serving drinks up there. However, if there wasn't anyone serving, then you could just order through the Medallion app, so it was really straightforward, and we never had to wait very long for that at all. The only other thing I'd say about it was that every day it closed, I think it often was around 4 or 4:30 for the elite and above cocktail. So that was the only thing that we sometimes got kicked out whilst that was going on.
If you are in elite, they did look like, or above, they did look like they had some good snacks and nibbles should you need more food on a cruise.
Yeah, we were tempted to say we were elite on Celebrity and see what happened, but we decided not to.
So the next venue, Crooners, we did have a few drinks here in different times. Really like the atmosphere, but it does get really, really busy when there's entertainment on. There was a lot of people sort of spilling out over the corridor and bits whilst there was entertainment on. But like I say, it was a great atmosphere there. And it was the venue that had Brighton Gin. And being someone who was born and bred in Brighton, it was such a nice thing to see there.
So then moving on to the last place, it was the Wheelhouse Bar. So we didn't find this really until pretty much the last night, or we did find it, but we'd not actually gone to have a drink in there. We felt that it was somewhere where we kind of missed out on a bit because we had cocktails there. It was nice. There was acoustic guitarists playing on the stage in the corner. So yeah, it was a really nice venue. And one of the things I liked about this venue, but actually it goes for a lot of the other venues as well, was kind of how small they are. So they felt kind of cosy in places.
The other venues, so there's the Explorer Lounge and Club Fusion, and both had events on lots of the time. They weren't our favourite spots because they were so big, and like Andy's just said, the other places that were smaller suited us better.
Moving on to the gym. Now, I did frequent the gym. Did you go to the gym? I can't remember.
Yes, I did.
You did?
I did. Maybe not as much as I should, but I did go there.
Well, I definitely didn't go as often as I should. So the gym was in a good location. One of the things I really liked about it was that there was kind of a balcony right outside, so you could kind of, when you're in the gym, when you're on your running machine, you could kind of look out to sea. But then when you finished your gym session, you could go out through, it was a fire escape door, but you could go out that way. And it had a really good view, obviously, of the front of the ship as well. Overall, I thought the machines were a little bit dated, but they did the job, and there was a good selection of different things. And one time when I went up there, they were doing one of the classes, so it was a cycling class. And we did have those included as part of the Princess Premier package. But to be honest, we just didn't really get around to it.
One of the things about the gym area that I did notice on the couple of times that I went there is a pool there that looked like it could be a really nice spot, but most of the time that I went past, it was actually closed. So I don't know if it was closed for the duration of the cruise or if it was just bad luck. But
I think it did open some of the time, but it certainly wasn't open very long. And I think when the times we wanted to swim, it definitely wasn't open.
So to carry on with the pools and the outside area, we did experience some bad weather. If you've seen our other video, we did take the opportunity to film a bit about seasickness and some of the remedies you can use on a cruise when the weather's rough. So there were times when the pools were closed because of the weather, and that was on quite a few days, but there were other days when they were open.
Yeah, and I'd say overall, because of the weather, we didn't make as much use of the pools. In fact, I think I only went in once, and I didn't go in a hot tub at all, which is very unusual for me.
Milo and I went in a few times on different occasions, but it was chilly getting out.
And I think the terrace pool, which was kind of right towards the aft of the ship, it felt like that was the nicest in terms of temperature. It wasn't cold in there at all. It was really pleasant.
There was some mixed messages around that pool as to whether it was open to everyone or adults only. Some of the old signs looked like they were saying it's adults only, yet they had the kids' buoyancy aids there, and there were often kids swimming in there. So there was a bit of mixed messaging going on there.
I think it was just a sign. It was a sign thing, wasn't it?
And then the other thing with the pools that Milo enjoyed on a few occasions, and I think if it had been a warmer cruise, he'd have really liked, was the splash zone. They've got quite a good fun little splash zone, and he enjoyed that on the days when we could brave it.
And pretty much just before we left the UK, really.
Next on to the library, and that was a really nice space. It seemed really well used as well. Sometimes the library seemed quite quiet on cruise ships, but this one seemed like there was a lot going on there.
And they actually had some books as well, which is an advance on some of the cruises we've been on recently. They also had a really good selection of different board games that you could borrow, and they had like more than one. So they had 5 sets of backgammon or that kind of thing. The only thing was that quite a few of them had some bits missing, but I kind of think that's a little bit to be expected on a ship, really. But we definitely borrowed some. We played them and we dropped them back. So yeah, I thought it was really good.
And then the shops. We're definitely not big shoppers, so the shops on cruise ships are often a bit of a wasted space for us. But we did have some onboard credit to spend, and a 5-year-old with us who likes to spend. So we did come away with a couple of Princess Cruise jackets for Andy and I, and of course a Stanley Bear for Milo, and a little Stanley Bear for Christmas decoration as well.
And I was then left with a little bit of onboard credit left, so I decided the best place to use it would be in the duty-free shop. I didn't think the prices were particularly good, and again, I think this is just the case on all cruise ships now. Generally, I think you're better to get duty-free in port. They had a specific offer, I can't quite remember what it was, but where you bought two or 3 bottles of something and you got it for a cheaper amount. But they'd actually sold out of a lot of the things that would make up the offer. So they did offer me 20% off something else. But yeah, if we didn't have onboard credit, I definitely wouldn't have bothered with the shops.
And next to the entertainment, there was some great live music around the ship. Some of it wasn't to our taste, but it was of a good quality. And it's really nice to see live music around the ship.
Yeah, and this time we didn't actually see any shows in the theatre. We went and had a look at the theatre about 45 minutes before a show was going to start, and it had pretty much filled up then. So we did have, like I said, the Princess premiere, so we could have got some reserved seats for the production shows. But to be honest, we don't tend to very much go for the kind of organised entertainment when we do go away. I think the main times we do are for the more like the big production shows like we've seen on Iona and ships like that. But yeah, we certainly didn't go this time.
Yeah, there was nothing really that took our fancy enough to think we would join that busyness. The one thing that we did go to, well, Milo and I went to the start of it, was one of the lectures, which seemed like it was going to be really interesting, and it was really interesting. The start of it was really good. Sadly, it wasn't interesting enough to capture a 5-year-old for too long, so we did have to leave quite early on. But it did mean that we got to try the theatre and see what it's like. It was comfortable and clean, like lots of the ship. It's a bit dated, but yeah, it was a nice place. And actually, if there had been something that had caught our attention a bit more, it would have been a good place to see a show.
And I think quite often it was just a clash between the dinner times, the show times, and when we would drop off or collect from the kids' club. So that was probably the main reason, really. I think if we were on our own, we probably would have made more effort to go, I think.
There were some other good activities going on around the ship. There was a watercolour competition where people were all painting on the same pictures for a set amount of time and then moving on. And then there was something that Milo really, really enjoyed. So Milo and I watched some of the chefs doing some fruit carving, and that was something a bit different. And Milo thought it was great fun trying to guess what the chefs were making out of the fruit. And so for guest services, we did go there a couple of times. The main time that we went there was to get a letter about the missed ports, and they sorted this out really quickly for us. They did it whilst we waited. We didn't have to queue or anything like that to get there, so it was overall a really good experience.
Which unfortunately is more than can be said for the shore excursions. So we did have, unfortunately, quite a poor experience with the shore excursion. And we normally book independent tours, but for this cruise, we decided that we would book one tour with Princess because it was in Greenland and we wanted to make sure that we wouldn't miss out. Unfortunately, because we arrived late into Kakatok, Princess cancelled the excursion. But the thing that caused the problem was that they didn't actually tell us that they'd cancelled it. So we were waiting in our cabin for quite a long time. And they eventually went down and they said, oh yeah, it's been cancelled. But they just hadn't told us. So we thought it was pretty poor customer service. And it did put me off probably booking another shore excursion with Princess. Although I wouldn't say never, because I think there are situations when it's worth booking through the cruise line. But yeah, it was just disappointing customer service, really.
And it's completely understandable that it had to be cancelled.
For sure.
It had been delayed and then cancelled. It's completely understandable with the weather, but it was just the customer service that went with it. They pretty much didn't believe us that we hadn't got a letter or a message on the answer phone.
But yeah, so it is what it is. Yeah. But there we go. So onto the casino. So we didn't really go into the casino very often. I quite often will go and have a little bit of a flutter there. But to be honest, I was put off by the smoking there. I know that's a kind of love it or hate it thing, but yeah, that's just what it was for me.
The kids club and the kids activities were really good. We thought that the activities for the younger children were excellent. Milo had a great time. And there is more to do on the Caribbean Princess than some of the other ships we've been on, like P&O and Iona.
There were certainly fewer children on this cruise. I think there was about 100 under 12s. So, and this was in the height of the UK summer holiday. So I think the fact that it was a longer 16-night cruise probably does affect the kind of demographic a bit. But yeah, we certainly weren't overwhelmed with children.
They did, outside the kids club, have the age and breakdown of the children who were on board. And Milo was very pleased, I think, to see that he was the only 5-year-old boy on board the ship for the cruise.
And then importantly as well, let's talk about service. I mean, I think for me, I was so impressed with the service right the way across the ship. I can't even think of, aside from that shore excursion thing, I can't think of one moment where the service was poor whatsoever.
The crew couldn't do enough to help us, and we rarely had to wait long for anything. We found the service to be really similar to other cruises on Celebrity, and certainly a step up from P&O when we've been on Iona.
So let's talk a little bit about Princess Premier. So one of the things that I hadn't really understood until we actually got on board was the prices of drinks. So I would say that actually there was a really good range of drinks included in the Princess Standard package. So I think, the next time that we go with Princess, I would probably just book the Standard Princess package.
So with the maintenance of the Caribbean Princess, there is no denying that the ship is showing her age. But there were always people doing work. They were repairing something or other the whole time we were there. So it could have been a whole lot worse than it was. I think one day they were painting the swimming pool when it was out of action and had to be drained. So it was really good to see that there was that work going on. And the cleaning was good as well.
And I think just for comparison as well, so we have sailed very recently on 2 older ships, and we've also sailed on at least a couple of the newer ships. So we've got kind of a good comparison. And for me, nothing about the maintenance of the ship or the cabins would put me off cruising on Caribbean Princess again.